In today's tutorial, we're going to be working with our gorgeous Graceful Plumes collection. Now I want to start off by showing you the absolutely exquisite paper pad, just to sort of give you a little bit of a taste and a flavour of quite how exquisite this collection is. So within our 12 by 12 inch pad, and don't forget as well, you do get this replicated in your 6 by 6 inch pad too. The colour tones are absolutely stunning. Really rich dual colour tones you can see within here. All the beautiful peacock feathers, the peacock details, you've got floral details. The paper pad is absolutely stunning and really does set the tone for a truly exquisite collection. So we'll start off by creating our card base, and what we've done here is we've grabbed a piece of our 12 inch by 12 inch white cardstock, we've cut it down to 8 inches by 12 and we've scored it at 6 inches to create a 6 inches by 8 inches card base, and that's going to form the basis of the card that we'll create today. Then we've brought in some of those beautiful papers using that 12 by 12 pad. We've just cut a piece down and then we've matted and layered onto a piece of some of our Centura pearl in gold that's cut to about 1/8 of an inch larger, and here you can see how beautifully well those papers work. Even when you cut them down for your rectangular cards, that square design still works an absolute treat. And all we're going to do here is we're just going to bring in our collal glue here, just to bring that into position onto the back of here to glue it onto my card base. So we'll take our all-purpose and we'll add some of this to the back of our mat and layer. Now it's completely up to you what sort of glue you favour when it comes to your mats and layers. I like my all-purpose. Some people prefer their double-sided, that will work well too, or you could go for a tape pen, that will work a treat as well. So it's up to you in terms of what glue or adhesive you find easiest to work with for your mats and layers. With your all-purpose, it does just give you a few moments just to centre that, manoeuvre it into position. Then once you're happy with where that's laid onto your card, just give it a little burnish. That will allow the glue to actually grab to your card base. And once we're happy with that, we can just move it to one side and we'll start to bring in some of the gorgeous dies from the collection. So we're starting off with this absolutely stunning, really large, I mean it's a huge size die here with your peacock feather creator card, and it's not just about that beautiful detail on the inside, you've also got your outer frame as well, which is what makes it a creator card style die. So we'll grab the two dies here, so just taking that off the card, and then we'll bring in some white cardstock, and I've just got a piece of white cardstock here, just cut ever so slightly larger than the die itself, and we'll bring in our die cutting machine plates to start to build up our sandwich. So we've got our piece of white cardstock, the same card that I actually cut my card base from. We've got our outer frame die, and then we've got our inner detail. If you cut the inner detail on its own, it will just cut that design into your cardstock without an outer frame. Great for apertures, great for box lids, lots of different uses for just the frame on its own. So we'll pop that into the centre and just lining that up so I've got an even border between the two dies, so it's going to be nicely lined up and centred onto my cardstock. Then I'll bring in some of my low tack tape, just a piece onto that right hand side there, and we'll put another piece onto the left hand side just to make sure that it doesn't move and as it goes through that die cutting machine. So that's my die lined up onto my cutting plate, and then in terms of building our plate combination, we'll bring in our frosted shim. That goes over the top, then we pop on our magnetic shim. With it being a really detailed die, you definitely do want to add in your magnetic shim, and then the final cutting plate will just go over the top of there, and then that will run through our die cutting machine. And then we'll just peel back our die. Because it's so detailed, we're just going to take a little bit of care, just easing back that die cut from the die itself. And then all we need to do is just peel that back. All the waste pieces, we can just pop those out. So any little stragglers that are left within the die, you can grab your pokey tool and you can just take those off, but just a couple of those left in the die, and that will give you a beautiful finished die cut, just like so. I mean, the detail is absolutely outstanding within that die. Just move our waste out the way, and then I'm going to bring in one that I've already die cut using that same lovely Centura pearl that we use for our mats and layers. So all we've gone ahead and done is done exactly the same with our die cut there, taken the two dies, I've die cut through our gold card, and that's going to be a drop shadow for our white piece here. So all we're going to do is we're just going to bring in some of our tape. So I've got my dotty tape pen here, so a little bit of our tape all around the edge, and then we'll just come into the areas in the centre here where we've got all those beautiful delicate tendrils of the peacock feather, and we'll just start to put some of our tape onto there. Once you're happy that you've got enough adhesive onto there, we'll just bring in our gold layer, and we're just going to leave this so it's slightly down and slightly towards the left of the layer above, but it's completely up to you what sort of direction you want to drop shadow in. But we just want to make sure we've got a little bit of that gold, not an awful lot, just a little bit of the gold showing beneath our white layer. So we just line that up, making sure that all of those little delicate little pieces there are sort of adhered into position, and then we'll give that a nice old burnish to make sure that it's all stuck down firmly. Now once we've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to turn that over and we're going to bring in a piece of acetate that we've cut just ever so slightly smaller than the outer frame itself, and that's just going to sit all around the back of that piece there. So I'll bring in my tape pen. This die works perfectly for your shakers. You've got a nice lot of detail in there and a lot of open space as well, which you can see all the shaker inclusions behind that cutaway detail. Once we're happy we've got enough tape onto there, bring in our acetate and then we'll pop our acetate onto the reverse, and then we'll just give that a good old burnish. So there we've got our element ready to be created into a shaker. So we'll bring in some of our foam tape, and that's going to be perfect for creating your shaker style cards, because we need to make sure that we've got a continuous wall of tape. So I'm just going around the length of this die cut here. You've got a nice wide border on there as well, so plenty of room to get your foam tape around there. Now at this point we'll bring in some of our lovely shaker sequins. So here I've got our lovely pot of shaker sequins that are going to go into the centre of this shaker. So I'll bring back in our card base and I'm just going to pour my sequins into the centre, but first of all I'll just remove the backing from our tape here. So I'll just remove the lid from these and I will just sprinkle those into the centre. Plenty of sequins, we like a nice lot of bling in our shakers, so we're going to pour plenty of those into there. After all, we do have quite a big space within that die to actually fill, and then we're just going to spread those out a little bit more. We need to make sure that the depth of that pile of sequins is no higher than the depth of our foam tape, otherwise it's going to be difficult to sort of glue down our frame. And at this point we'll bring in our frame here, and then that's just going to go over the top of our shaker, just like so. Just make sure we've sealed that bond with the foam tape at the edges, and that gives you a lovely shaker card just like so. So there we've got our shaker, but we want to add a little bit more detail. After all, we've got tons and tons of goodies in this gorgeous collection. We've got plenty of embellishments we can be adding to this shaker. So all I've done is I've taken this lovely stamp set that you do get as part of the collection, and all I've done is I've stamped that image, I've die cut it, and then I've coloured it using some of my tri-blend brush pens in those lovely peacock colour tones. I've just sort of colour matched from what I've seen on the paper pad, and that gives you a lovely finished result. I've also taken another of those die cuts, this time not stamping on this one, but actually just die cutting it from some of our Centura pearl. And all we're going to do, same sort of idea as what we did with our drop shadow on our frame, is we're going to drop shadow that gold layer underneath this coloured layer. So we'll take some of our glue and we'll pop this onto the back of that coloured layer, just popping a little bit of that gold towards the left and slightly below that layer above, and that will give you a really nice sort of shadow, drop shadow to that element there that really does make it pop. Then we're just going to bring in our card and we're going to start to layer this together. So in addition to this little die cut, I've already stamped as well one of the sentiment stamps from the collection. But here we've chosen Proud as a Peacock, matte and laid it onto some of that gold cardstock as well, and that will also go onto the card base. So we'll bring in some of our foam pads and our foam tape to start to layer this together, and then that's going to go onto that bottom right hand corner. So remove the backing of our foam tape here, and then we can stick him onto the bottom of the frame here, almost a bit like he's sort of sitting on the side of the frame, just like so. And then the final finishing touch is just to add on our sentiment, just to sort of balance this design. We've got the detail on that bottom right, we'll add some more detail onto that top left with our sentiment, just like that. And you can see there, using a few elements from the collection, those beautiful papers as well. It looks absolutely gorgeous, built into a shaker card, a little bit of stamping, bit of colouring, a bit of die cutting, but I hope you can agree that that collection is absolutely stunning.